Welcome to The Art of Being Unstoppable, the podcast where we will go beyond the ordinary and embrace the extraordinary. Be part of down-to-earth, no BS conversations where we will explore hot topics on love and money, relationships and business, beauty, and who we get to be with all that shit in between. With our insights and your actions, let's be unstoppable together. Let's go.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of The Art of Being Unstoppable. Today, Tina and I are going to discuss choice versus decision, the core difference. So, and we have a little bit of a difference of thoughts on this, not completely opposite, but my thoughts are choice shapes our reality versus decisions based on our circumstances. So, choices are expansive. It comes from within. It's based on freedom and aligns with who we are at our core. And a decision's limiting. It comes often from external circumstances, pressures, or the need to eliminate other options. And that's what a decision is. So that's kind of where I feel this would differ. And I know Tina has a little bit more to share about that, but we're going to go into choices versus decisions here in this episode.
I think in all my years of doing personal development and training, I got this distinction of choice versus decision, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. And if you look at the word decide, the Latin root de and cidere means to cut off. And if you look at words with that kind of root word, like homicide, germicide, pesticide, all of the sides, what are they doing? They're cutting off humans, cutting off weeds, it's cutting something off. So when we look at the word decide, what we're actually doing is a lot aligned with what you said, cutting off possibilities. And usually a decision comes from a past experience or a future fear. So if you are trying to make a decision between like what house to buy, you're looking at, well, I had this feature in my old house and I really like this feature, but I don't. It's all because of some past situation. If you want to move locations, it's like, I really like this, but I don't like this. And you're thinking about what the future might be like, and you're weighing the pros and the cons, the good and the bad, and you're cutting off possibilities. And as human beings, we do that a lot. We look at past mistakes, past failures, and it impacts our decision. And we go through life making decisions always. What is the least risk? Ultimately, we're trying to control something that we might ultimately never have control over. But a choice is almost coming from a place of, if there is actually no past and there is no future, there's just right now. Do I want this right now? And most people do not go through life making choices. They go through life making decisions.
Yeah, I agree.
When I wanted to be teaching, right? I remember standing in the middle of my living room thinking about, okay, well, I'm going to lose my pension. And what if being an entrepreneur doesn't work? And what about my kids? And are they going to be impacted by my decision? And what if I can't survive? And what if I can't make more money? And then all of a sudden, this whole world around this, what could potentially be a choice, is created. And most people go through life being very risk aversive. So they're like, what is the least riskiest option right now? We don't know. We don't know the outcome of our choice, of our decisions or choices. But in a choice, had I had been in that living room and I didn't think about my pension and I didn't think about what there was to lose or if my kids would be impacted, and I just said, do I want to leave teaching? Yes or no? Is this something that lights my soul on fire? Is this something that I really want right now? And I choose it because of no other reason, not thinking about anything else, just in my heart and my soul right now. Do I choose to leave coaching? Yeah, I choose to leave coaching because I choose to leave coaching. Oh no, I'm not leaving coaching.
I was going to say, wait.
But in that moment, right, a powerful choice is almost listening to your internal compass. What in that moment is your heart telling you above all the voices, because the voices are going to say things like, you're never going to make it work. You can't possibly do that. Are you crazy? Maybe you're being selfish. All of these things. And then we make a decision. If the voices are quiet or not as loud, we'll be like, yeah, I'll make that decision. If they're loud, we don't.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when we first started working together and you had asked me, because I was thinking about, after my parents passed, I had to make a decision about going back to the job that I was in. I was managing a beauty supply, and, the beauty supply was changing. Everything was changing. And you had said to me, you get to choose. What do you choose? Don't give me a reason. What do you feel from inside? What do you feel? I said, I don't want to go back. Then that's what you're going to do. There's no right. There's no wrong. You don't have to give a reason. You get to make that choice if you know it's not right for you.
Yeah. Because do we actually know the outcome?
No.
Do we
and
know
I had no clue. I did not have a clue what could or would or should or might happen. I made a choice because I knew staying wasn't making me happy. But the decision to stay would be beneficial for my family, for my this, for blah, 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 blah. But I made the choice consciously and from in here. And it was rooted in self-awareness and possibility. That's where it came from. I was stepping towards something. I wasn't driven by logic and external expectations and all of this other need to solve something. I actually chose to do something. And I'm telling you,
choice,
yes,
right?
And it empowered me.
And because in your head, what were the stories? Like, if I leave, what could go wrong? Like, what were you thinking?
Well, then, a weekly paycheck, because I hadn't been doing hair anymore. And this was what I was doing. And I was making money, and I'd never worked for someone. So I was making money you know what I mean? Like, I had a steady paycheck of a certain number that I knew I was getting every week. And it was comfortable because it was the known. I knew what was going to happen next.
Yeah. And then when you made that powerful choice, what happened after that?
I was so empowered, and I began building a business, and I couldn't be happier. And I began looking within and seeing the other choices that I get to make every day. Not that I just had to make. I got to make choices that I never saw were possible before.
In our brain, this is how human beings are wired. We are not wired for change. And we are always trying to minimize risk and trying to control every outcome. And so when we can just see that we actually have control, this is what I believe, not the truth, but this is my belief. Nothing in my life is in my control. If it's meant to be, it will be. And if it's not, it won't. But the only thing I can control is my reaction to life happening. But when I try and control everything, okay, well, I'm going to stay in this job. Before I left teaching, what I decided was I'm going to do a 4/5. I'm going to get a reduced pay for 4 years. My 5th year, I'm going to take off to grow a coaching business, and then I'll have some money, and I was just like, okay, that's a great plan. But somebody asked me, if anything were possible, what would you want? I said, I'd want to leave teaching. And my coach at the time said, okay, choose it. I'm like, well, what do you mean? She's like, choose coaching, just leave now. And in my mind, I was like, that's not even a possibility. That's irresponsible. That's being selfish. That's greedy. I'm not putting my family first. I'm not considering their feelings, their needs, and all of that stuff. But then I think back when I did powerfully choose, I could have never foreseen that I would grow a successful coaching company, that I'd be doing a TED Talk, that I would be serving thousands of people. In that moment when I was about to make a choice to leave teaching or to stay, I could have never in my wildest dream believed that the life that happened after that, the last 8 years, I would not have been able to visualize that. But what I learned in that moment when I was pacing in my living room and I just stopped and I said, okay, this is literally what happened. I remember saying, okay, God, if this is what I'm supposed to be doing, give me certainty. Show me a sign that I'm on the right path.
Mhm.
That's what I asked. And I remember picking up a book. I'm like, oh, I got to return my library book. I didn't have Audible at the time. I went to the library and got books, and I took out my bookmark and these words popped off the page. It was something along the lines of trust yourself and know, basically it was almost like a sign. I was like, okay. And then I got in my car, and the first song that popped on was, what's her name? I forget, Pattinson or something. Fight song. This is my fight song. Take
Yes,
back your life.
yes, yes.
That song came on, and I was just like, okay. Then I walked into the library, and the woman that's working the desk, I was just chatting her up and stuff like that. And I said, oh my gosh, I think I might be quitting teaching. She's like, well, what are you doing now? I said, I'm going to be a coach and I'm going to run workshops. She's like, oh, we love workshops. Do you want to run a workshop here? Really? She's, yeah, let me get you in touch with our coordinator. And it was almost like people started coming to me. People started reaching out. It was almost as if God, source, creator, the light, universe, whatever you believe in, was saying, okay, here's the evidence that you need. Don't listen to yourself. Listen to me. That's how I took it.
Yeah.
So in that moment, that choice, I didn't know what the outcome would be. But in that moment, I said, I don't want to wake up when I'm 70 years old and say, I wonder what might have happened when I was 40 if I would have taken a different action. And I do feel that that is the power in choice, because our brain will tell us that we can't have and we can't do and we can't be. Because we've been programmed to run from real threats like lions and tigers and bears. Oh my.
Yes, absolutely.
And so when we go to make a life-changing decision, we think it's like the end of the world. We might die if we buy the wrong house or if we quit our job. Like, you mean to tell me there's no other choices? No, we just don't look for, okay, now I chose, now what? Okay, well, let me take the next step and the next step.
Yeah. And the steps aren't easy, Tina. And I know that in any choice, but I made them consciously knowing that I got to do what I was doing. Right. So it was done with joy rather than I had to decide. You have to decide. This is what you have to do. You have to do. You have to do. And when you can just shift that mindset that little bit by just saying, I got to choose rather than I had to make the decision, yeah, exactly. I have to fix these issues. No, I choose to communicate openly with you to address these issues. Or, you had to stay in that job because it was practical. Right? I had to stay in that job because it was practical. I needed to stay there. No, I got to choose to follow my passion. I chose that. And there is an empowerment in choice that in decision, it isn't. It isn't.
Well, because I remember 3 years before my husband and I separated the first time, I remember I spent, Chris, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry for saying this out loud, but I probably spent the last year and a half, 2 years weighing the pros and the cons and trying to make a decision whether I should stay or leave. I was thinking about my kids and I was thinking about my future and I was thinking about our beautiful custom built home and the vacations and what I might be losing. And then one day I was just like, no other questions, just does this relationship serve me or does it hold me back? And I said, it's holding me back in so many areas, my self-expression, my confidence, my, I could go on and on and on. And I remember one day I was just like almost at that pivotal moment, like where I needed to choose. And I remember my father-in-law at the time, he's like, I heard you want to leave Chris. I'm like, well, things aren't working and they're not good. And he's like, well, then just leave. Just leave. What are you waiting for? Permission? There's permission. Leave. And I remember I needed somebody else to almost like push me out the door, but then I wasn't even capable of choosing in that moment. I couldn't make a choice because I didn't have the distinction. I didn't know that there was a difference. I was trying to make a decision and it was an impossible decision. I couldn't make the decision, but somebody made the decision for me and gave, just like when we went to the psychotherapist, He's like, are you already out the door? Do you already have one foot out the door and you're just looking for somebody to validate what you want to do? He's like, you don't need that. Just walk out the door. So here people are like almost saying, obviously you can't make this decision on your own. So let us help you. But it's like, I gave my power away because I couldn't stand in the choice. I couldn't with free will say, do I choose this or not? But I remembered when we got back together, and then the second time after 3, so if you guys don't know this story yet, my ex-husband and I separated in 2015, got back together in 18, and then we divorced in 2021. But in that moment, we both consciously chose, does this work or doesn't this work? And we're like, we can't make this. Okay, then we chose to walk away, not worrying about finances or anything else. It was an empowered choice. And then we consciously figured it out one step at a time. Without that powerful distinction, I think there's a lot of people that sit in indecision in business, in relationships, in life, because we just don't have the courage to choose.
Yeah. I agree. I moved to Windsor area with my ex-husband, thinking that I decided to move away from my family, my friends, my career, everything that I had known, to come to a different city. And I decided to do it for my children, and if we moved, everything would be different, right? Our lives would be different. They'd be better. Then when we got here and things weren't different, things just got worse. I did choose. This isn't working for me. I am going to make a stand in my power and say to you, I am done. This isn't working. I'm choosing to say, bye, you need to go. I get to do what I need to do for my family and for myself. Yep. And it wasn't easy. It was not easy. But you know what? It was harder to decide to stay, because I did decide to move here. I didn't choose it. I didn't really have a choice, is the way I looked at it. And that's when I look back, now that I know what I know now, and when I look back and realize you do always have a choice. I didn't think I had a choice. I thought I had to decide to come here because there was no other choice. To make my marriage work, I had to come here. That wasn't the truth. That was the story that I told myself to make it okay for me to do what I had to do.
Right.
Yeah. So, I get what you're saying, and we never went back together. And, it was a hard thing for me to watch his road go the way it did. And because I knew there was possibility there, but it wasn't mine to own anymore. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I chose better for me and my children and allowed him to go and do what he had to do, and not own it, not try and control it anymore, not try and, be the one that would fix everything. It was definitely, I think when I look back now after you were sharing what you were sharing about Chris, it is definitely a choice that I made, and I didn't look at it like a choice then. And now when I look back, I remember being so empowered in the choice that I made.
This is a smaller scale kind of version of what we're talking about, but just this morning, somebody on LinkedIn asked me if I wanted to be a speaker at a summit in Miami. And she reached out a few times, and then she said, to get on the virtual stage, it's $4.99. And if you want to do this, it's $5.99. And there's like all these pricing options, right? And I just said to her, thanks for the opportunity, but I'm choosing no for now. And then she asked me, well, can I ask you why? And my response to her was, it's a no because I choose no right now. Not because of the money or the pricing or the this or the that. It's like, I don't need to justify my no. I chose no because I chose no. I don't want to be a speaker because I don't want to be a speaker. There is no explanation. There is no nothing. And I think that's what choice is, when you could say, I chose to leave teaching because I chose to leave teaching. I chose not to be a speaker because I chose not to be a speaker. I chose to leave the relationship because I chose to leave the relationship. I think sometimes what we do is when we add the reasons why, that's not actually a choice. That's a decision.
Yeah.
And
are they the real reasons sometimes too? Like, are they the real reasons, or are you just making something up to appease the other person or to justify your choice in a way that really isn't? It's just a choice. I chose it.
Yeah, because that's what we do. It's like, oh, well, I didn't want to be with Chris because no, that's not true. I'm just looking to put all my shit onto somebody else to make myself feel better for
Exactly.
my decision. You know,
Exactly.
when you make an empowered choice, you don't need to blame yourself or
No.
anybody else. It's just, I'm choosing it. Just like if somebody calls and says, hey, I know you asked me, I don't know when we're going to be releasing this, but St. Patrick's Day is on Monday. And you're like, hey, we're going to go out. And do you want to go? And I was like, in that moment, I didn't know if I wanted to or not. And I know that if I said, yeah, you know what? I don't want to go. You'd be like, okay, cool. You choose not to go because you choose not to go. You would never ask me like, well, why? How come you don't want to go? Because you know my choice is my choice. And this is the power in choice too. And surrounding yourself with people that know this distinction. And if you want to adopt it and take it on, you don't have to justify your no. Your no is your no because it's a no. That's it.
Absolutely. And saying that, and I mean, I know we have a lot of women listeners and we have a lot of male listeners as well, but the women sometimes, what I used to be before I realized that I got to choose, I always looked at it like I had to give the reasons behind it. I always looked for the story, the reasons and excuses of why. No, thank you.
Yeah.
You don't have to say, you want that piece of cake? No, thank you. I'm watching what I'm eating right now. No,
yeah,
just
that's
no,
a decision.
thank you. Right?
It's not a choice that's based on something,
right?
from the past.
Mm-hmm. Like I read this just the other day. I have to go on a diet. I choose to nourish my body. Which one is a choice and which one is a decision?
Yeah.
Right? I have to go on a diet. That's a decision. I choose to nourish my body as a choice.
Yep. Why?
And if we can reframe that, just change that mindset just that little bit, look at the power we give ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, okay, I don't want to go to the gym today. Well, why don't you want to go to the gym today? I choose not to go to the gym because I choose not to go to the gym. But that's it. My kids will be like, Mom, can you drive me here? No, I'm not driving you there. Why? Because I'm choosing not to drive you there. But why? Because I'm choosing not to drive you there. I don't need to say, well, because I don't want to drive. And no, that's a decision. It's like, because I choose not to.
Do you feel that isn't the norm? We don't do that.
That's not the norm.
It isn't the norm.
Do that. No.
And why can't we do that? Why don't we do that? Why don't more people just be honest and just say, no, thank you. Or yes,
because
please,
or
whatever.
We're not wired this way. We've been programmed to think that we have to justify why we do what we do, why we say what we say, why we act the way we act. And that's just, we were born into that programming. It's just what has been so. And I think the reason why we do this podcast and helping people and we say it's the art of being unstoppable, because the things that we're talking about sometimes aren't typical. They're not the way people operate. And it's just things that we've learned. And this isn't, we just woke up and got a download from God on how to talk about these things. Like, we've learned them. We've gotten them from somebody, and we're just sharing what we've learned and what we want to pass on, because every time we get something and we give it away, it strengthens the distinction for us too. So if you're listening to this podcast right now about choice and decision, and you say, hey, I learned this distinction about choice and decision, and I realized you could just say, I choose it because I choose it. Then people are like, oh, really? Tell me more about that. Now, all of a sudden, we're transforming people around us. You're transforming people around you just by you speaking it into existence. This is how it becomes internalized, because you practice it. You can't just listen to a podcast, get it. You got to take it into your life, and you got to practice it.
Yes.
And the practice is very uncomfortable. When you start honoring your boundaries and choosing your life, people around you might feel a little uncomfortable. Well, why? Because I'm choosing it. What do you mean you're choosing it? This isn't how we talk. This isn't how we operate. It's like somebody asked me out on a date, and I'm like, yeah, no. But why?
Yeah, no.
Because I choose no. But there must be a reason why you're choosing no. No, I choose no because I choose no. He's like, but you got to tell me why. Like, some people want you to make a decision. You want to tell them, I'm like, okay, listen, if you want me to justify, I can, but I don't feel like I need to. And then sometimes I let them have it because I know right away that you're not my person. But don't you think you should give it a chance? No. Why? Because I choose not to, and people will feel very uncomfortable about you standing in your power, but that's not your problem. It's not my problem if people feel uncomfortable by me honoring my boundaries and me making choices and standing in my power, because I know that my light, if you're the light and you go into a dark room, you illuminate the room. You can shift people just by your presence, by your light, by your way of being. And Vicky, is this not the truth? Like, I feel this is why we're doing this podcast.
Absolutely.
Because when
Yes.
people work with us or don't work with us, go access more resources or not, we want you to take a nugget that you learned from us and not just be like, oh, that was really cool. No, apply it in your life so that it can transform your life.
Yes.
This is why we do what we do.
I wanted to say this. Absolutely. I love that. And it's the truth. It is the truth. This is why we do what we do. This came up for me earlier and then we started talking about something else, but I wanted to say, like, when I was talking about women, I wanted to say women often feel stuck in decisions rather than owning their choices. So
Yes.
shifting from a decision-making mindset, what's right and wrong, right? Because that's how we look at it. Is it right? Is it wrong? To a choice-making mindset, what aligns with me? What aligns with me? Helps you step into that power.
Yeah. And imagine a world.
Sorry, go ahead. Yes. No, say that.
Right? Imagine a world where we actually step into our personal power.
Yes, absolutely. And we're going to do an episode on the experiences we have with others and asking them about them. Because we have this thing, and I really want to talk about that. I actually wrote it down, but I also wanted to say one more thing about choices. And, I listened to, and I'm going to, his name just went out of my head, but I listened to this gentleman and he has a podcast. I cannot remember his name, but I will find it and I'll put it in the show notes. And he said,
Rob Dial?
No, it wasn't Rob Dial.
I know you love Rob.
I know I do. He said, he was a football player and then he went into doing something else. And when who?
Lewis House.
Was it Lewis House? Maybe it was Lewis House. Well, when I tell you the story, you'll probably tell me that's who it was. So he made it, he said this and it really, I can't forget it because he said, I told people in my life, when I started shifting who I was becoming, I changed my lifestyle. I couldn't be that partying and doing all those things. I shifted my lifestyle and I got to tell people that it's not about me wanting to spend time with you or not, but my core values and what aligns with me, this isn't what it is anymore. So I've made a choice to change that. If you want to come along with me, that's cool, but I'm not dragging you. And I'm not falling back. This is my choice. This is the way I am living my life. So it aligned with his core values.
Yep. Yeah. He was a guest on Lewis Howe's podcast because I remember him too. I can even remember seeing his face and I remember him saying that, about success, and when you start shifting and I think he was talking about leaving the football career and stuff like that. He had all these people that were surrounding him and showing up. But then when he wasn't playing football anymore and, there was like this shift that happened where he was doing something different, but everybody saw him as that old version. And he's like, no, this isn't like, I think he was talking about like keeping your circle tight and people will either come up with you or not. Or they'll drop off.
And they can. And that's the thing with choices. Like when you do start being conscious about what you get to do, things change in your life. And that's okay. It is okay.
Yeah. Embrace the process.
It is. Embrace the process. Yes, absolutely. So anyway, on that note, choice versus decision.
Yes.
Absolutely. So think about that, friends. And we hope that you took something away today from today's episode. And we will, in our show notes, we have other little nuggets for you in there. We have a school community, we have a Facebook community, as well as some resources. So please follow us, like and share, and we'll see you soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Well, friends, that is the end of our episode today. If you love this episode, hit the subscribe button so you never miss another episode. And please share us with your friends and tag us on your socials at The Art of Being Unstoppable. So for today, have yourself a beautiful day and let's be unstoppable together. See you next time.